Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Robert O'Brien, a solutions consultant here at Rezolve.ai. And the question we hear from enterprise leaders all the time isn't, should we use AI? It's, why is this so hard to get right? That's what today's session is all about, the 5 barriers holding back AI in the enterprise and how to overcome them. I'm joined by Saurabh Kumar. He's the CEO here at Rezolve.ai, and he spends every day working with CIOs, IT, HR leaders on this exact challenge. So Saurabh, why don't you introduce yourself and then we can jump in.
Hey there. Excited to be here, Rob. My name is Saurabh Kumar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Rezolve.ai. But prior to that, I was actually a buyer of technology, running leadership roles in large enterprises, banks, healthcare companies, etc. So I have a perspective on this from both sides of the equation. So excited to be here and share my experience.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to have you. I always love chatting with you here. So let's start with leadership. AI projects need a strong sponsor, someone who's willing to champion the initiative and stay close to it. But too often, no one steps up and the effort drifts. So why does that leadership gap sink so many projects, and what does effective sponsorship really look like?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll step back, Rob, if it's okay, and talk a quick second about the 5, kind of just to set the bigger picture of the 5
absolutely.
Themes that I see often working with clients, right? It is about missing a strong champion at the top of the house, and we'll talk about that in a second. It is about just trying to avoid taking all risks. So I think the second factor we see often is not kind of taking calculated balance risk, but about risk aversion. A third interesting one is about overpaying, overspending by just being too close to large vendors where it becomes slow, expensive, hard to show ROI. The next one that I see often is around chasing things that are further out than we need to chase. So going after the most hyped parts of the technology rather than fit for purpose things that can deliver immediate results. And then lastly, focusing, kind of doing more kind of academic lab type work rather than more business outcome focused things. So I think those are kind of the 5 big kind of themes that I see. So let's talk about the first one, right, which is missing champions. So very often we see AI is a project that has been pushed to some part of the IT organization.
That's right.
They're driving it with a bunch of data scientists and engineers. This is not really a leadership-driven strategic change for the organization. And what we really need, and I think those projects are doomed to fail because AI involves a lot of change. And unless there's strong sponsorship at the top, it's not going to go anywhere. And the best, I think the companies that I think are very successful have leaders who use these things in their own personal life. They begin to see how it impacts and can reshape the business. And then they drive a very forward-thinking, futuristic vision on how the organization will look 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, enabled by AI, infused throughout the organization, right? I think that's a very different organization than saying, hey, someone in IT went to a conference and is now trying to figure out how to bring it in, but they don't have any, it's just another IT project that needs to be prioritized. And that's not the way to think about it. I think companies should find someone in their senior ranks who's willing to be really close to it, understand what it is, use it, and then champion it for the organization.
So what about risk? Some enterprises seem to avoid AI because they simply don't want to make a mistake, while others throw in everywhere without guardrails at all, and neither approach works. So how can leaders strike at the right balance between moving fast and staying responsible?
Yeah, and I think the reality is, as the industry has come along, there's some really good ways to manage quote unquote risk, right? Anything new we do entails risk. The risk could be reputational, financial, what have you, right? But the way I at least the clients that I see doing well with Rezolve are, one, I think you build out internal expertise before you begin to do things external to the organization. So a great example is build the muscle to deliver AI to your employees before you start delivering it to your customers, right? And I think that's where I often talk about IT service management or HR support are fantastic areas to start an AI transformation journey. But there's generally a lot of mythology and a lot of unknown that people come to the equation with. And I think one way to help people get comfortable with the adoption of AI is to say, hey, look, the data does stay private. It does not get used. So
Mhm.
you can go through as a company to kind of debunk some of this mythology, and maybe you and I can talk a little bit more about risk in general. What are the myths we see in organization?
Yeah, right.
Generally, the cycle I see is there's all these incorrect assumptions about what may have been true 2-3 years ago that informs the policies around how to avoid risk, that then feeds into the inability for any project to move forward. The way to break that cycle is one, revisit those assumptions, and B, start with things that are inherently lower risk, like employee support.
Sure, but there's also the pull of the big vendors. Going with the biggest name feels safe, but it also means really slow rollouts, heavy costs, and fuzzy ROI. So, Saurabh, what's the danger of defaulting to those usual suspects? And how should leaders think about, some of the alternatives?
Yeah, this is a fascinating one, right? I mean, the saying is now a few decades old that nobody got fired for buying from IBM, which was true in the 70s, right? It is something analogous is true today. People go where they have been comfortable going. The challenge
Sure.
with that is a lot of legacy products, whether SaaS or otherwise, have either AI that is not core to their offering, it's just a little bolt-on, or they have not built it in a way that where it can be delivered quickly and efficiently. It takes a lot of services, so the price points are really high. They take a lot of 6 month long or a year long implementation. It's viewed as a services project, so a team does the services, they go away. You're stuck with this expensive half-done project that probably continues to need investment, and at some point your sponsors begin to run out of patience, maybe eventually pull the plug on the project, right? And I think that approach, I think, needs to be, I encourage clients to step back and think about the problem you're trying to solve for. If you're in sales trying to get something to accelerate your sales motion by bringing in AI SDRs, then there are companies that are hyper focused on building that out. You don't need to take your general purpose CRM and maybe take their AI module and then try to figure this out, because it's a expensive, slow proposition. So going with purpose built verticalized solution accelerates time to market. And I think it's worth kind of scouting out and figuring that out, rather than just defaulting to large services companies or large legacy SaaS platforms that you might have done business with, that everyone's muddying the water by claiming all things AI, but they're not all equal, right? For some, AI is just a sideshow that they have. It's like a veneer that you have added on top of something versus it's the core offering. And I think that is
That's exactly right.
that distinction makes all the world in the pricing, the outcome, and the speed.
But there's the hype, man, and it gets in the way too. Leaders are chasing the newest features or the headline grabbing demos, while the core problems like ticket backlogs, they just remain unsolved. So how do you keep the focus on crawl, walk, run progress and real business outcomes instead of distractions?
Yeah, it's like if you take a car analogy, everyone's talking about full self-driving, right?
Yeah,
Maybe the
they are.
goal, but maybe we need to get our lane changes to work better first, right? Before. So there's lots of AI that actually is very mature, very robust, can be delivered quickly,
I agree.
changes a lot of outcome, builds internal competency to begin to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Rather than saying, hey, I went to this conference and I read this analyst presentation that has this really futuristic, fully autonomous thing that can do all these cool things, but it would take us 3 years to implement because the technology is relatively immature and still emerging, and we don't have the internal muscles and the internal motion to get this done, right? I think the companies that are successful are taking steps to deliver it in increments. What's ready, what's here, give it to, and again, to the point I was making, technology to do, for example, employee support, like what we do at Rezolve, is very mature. It's here. It's
Sure.
doing things like that allow you to build muscle and understanding on what the technology is able to do. And then you begin to keep kind of velocity with what's happening in the market and kind of begin to go towards more. So if you do a 2x2 matrix, and somewhere here are things that are really shiny and difficult to do, and somewhere along up here are things that have good ROI but are getting well established. I think those are the ones I would encourage people to start with.
So what about the permanent pilot problem? Enterprises are experimenting endlessly, but they never align those experiments to the business priorities. So nothing ever scales. So what's the best way to turn R&D into execution that drives measurable results? And if a CIO could just take one action in the next 90 days, say, what should it be?
Yeah, great question, Rob. So I often see AI becoming an R&D project in the sense that, hey, we're trying to build something, we're going to try out the new LLMs, we're looking at building an agentic architecture. It's almost putting the cart in front of the horse, right? We need to start with an urgent business opportunity or an urgent business problem that we're trying to solve for, and see how AI delivers that outcome, right? So if you're trying to generate more leads or have less tickets flowing into your IT team, or have your HR team freed up for doing better employees, whatever our business outcome is, we need to start with that, get that team engaged, and say that we're going to look for an AI first solution. It's not about trying out the latest LLMs and hoping that some magic comes out of it that we can productionalize. It is truly about finding some business sponsors and champions, identifying what their core needs are that is really being served well by AI, and making those projects the front runners in how you drive AI change within the organization.
So we've covered 5 of the biggest blockers: leadership gaps, risk paralysis, vendor inertia, those shiny distractions, and those pilots that never scale. So if you had to leave enterprise leaders with one clear takeaway to break through these barriers, what would it be?
Yeah, I will say start with something that is inherently lower risk, like employee support. Leverage technology that is AI first. Don't go with legacy technologies.
Sure.
Have clear, measurable KPIs and outcomes defined. Now, we're trying to improve CSAT scores, or we're trying to reduce the number of tickets coming. So AI is delivering an outcome that you can actually measure. Mm-hmm. Try not to chase the fanciest buzzword in the industry, but focusing on, again, the measurable outcomes and how to deliver those, rather than just chasing endless presentations. And start building internal muscle, grow them over time, right? I think it's an industry that's changing quickly. And if you start to build those muscles, you can bench more and more every month, and you'll have really buff muscles in a few months.
Stop. Well, Saurabh, thank you so much for the perspective, and thank you for everybody watching. The key theme is this: enterprises are not failing because the technology isn't ready. They're failing because the approach is not aligned. And with the right champion, the right risk balance, and focus on outcomes, AI stops being a pilot project and it starts really transforming the enterprise. So listen, for more sessions like this, visit www.rezolve.ai. That's spelled with a Z, REZOLVE.ai. And until next time. Thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you.